Most people work their entire lives but never get wealthy. They wake up early, work hard, stay loyal, and still end up struggling. Why? Because hard work alone doesn't make you rich. Clear thinking does. The world doesn't reward sweat, it rewards results. And if you keep making the same career mistakes, no amount of effort will save you. One of the biggest illusions people live under is that being busy means they're moving forward. They wake up early, check emails, rush to meetings, cross off to-do lists, and go to bed exhausted, thinking they've had a productive day. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Busyness is not progress. In fact, in many cases, it's a very sophisticated form of avoidance. You can fill every hour of your day with activity and still be exactly where you started, only more tired and more confused. I've spent a lifetime watching people work themselves into the ground. And the sad thing is that many of them never question whether their efforts are directed toward anything worthwhile. They confuse motion with progress, effort with achievement, and activity with strategy. But as I often say, if you keep doing dumb things, it doesn't matter how hard you work. You'll just get dumb results faster. Let me tell you something fundamental about human nature. We have a deep-seated need to feel like we're advancing. That's why people stay busy. It gives the illusion of movement. The brain loves that sense of momentum. But real progress, the kind that compounds into success, is usually slow, strategic, and uncomfortable. It requires reflection, not just action. It demands that you stop, think, and ask, am I climbing the right mountain or am I sprinting up the wrong one? Most people never ask that question because it's painful. It forces them to admit that their work might not be as meaningful or effective as they'd like to believe. They'd rather stay in motion than face that stillness. But that's how people stay poor, mentally and financially. They work tirelessly, yet directionlessly. They have energy, but no leverage, ambition, but no alignment. Let me give you a simple analogy. Imagine two people digging holes. One is digging with all his might, sweating, and feeling proud of his effort. The other one takes a moment to check the map, realizes he's digging in the wrong spot, and moves 10 feet to the left before starting. Now, at the end of the day, who's further ahead? The one who stopped to think. The world doesn't pay you for effort, it pays you for correctly directed effort. We live in an age that glorifies hustle. Everyone's hustling, rise and grind, no days off, sleep when you're dead. But what if your hustle is pointed in the wrong direction? What if all that energy is reinforcing mediocrity? If you're hustling towards something meaningless, you're not ambitious, you're just lost in motion. Hard work doesn't guarantee wealth or success. Smart work, consistent learning, and good judgment do. This is where psychology comes in. Most people don't think independently. They mimic the patterns around them. They see others running fast, so they start running too, assuming speed must mean success. But Munger would tell you, thinking clearly is more valuable than running fast. In a world where everyone is rushing, the calm thinker has an enormous advantage. The one who can pause, observe, and think objectively. That person sees what others miss. The great trap is that busyness feels good. It feels virtuous. It gives you a sense of control. But it's often just a way to avoid doing the hard work of thinking. The philosopher Blaise Pascal once said, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. He was right. Most people can't stand still long enough to think deeply about their direction. They'd rather keep doing than keep thinking. But the most productive people on earth, the ones who achieve disproportionate success, are the ones who think before they act, and act with clarity once they decide. You need to ask yourself regularly, what am I optimizing for? Am I building skills that compound? Am I spending my energy on things that actually move me closer to freedom? Or am I just maintaining the illusion of productivity? The ability to self-audit, to step back and assess the value of your motion, is the hallmark of maturity. People who mistake motion for progress often end up living in a cycle of frustration. They work harder each year, but their results barely change. That's not because life is unfair. It's because their focus is misplaced. They've never stopped to measure whether the ladder they're climbing is leaned against the right wall. The path to real success isn't about working harder than everyone else. It's about thinking better than everyone else. When you learn to prioritize thinking over constant doing, your decisions improve. And when your decisions improve, your outcomes compound. That's the essence of leverage. Not more motion, but smarter direction. So slow down. Take time to think. Be willing to stop digging if you realize you're in the wrong hole. The world doesn't reward endless effort. It rewards effective judgment. The people who win in life are not those who move the fastest. They're the ones who move in the right direction. Because in the end, it's not how much you move that matters. It's whether you're moving towards something that truly counts. You know, one of the biggest secrets in life, and I mean truly transformative secrets, is that skills, not jobs, determine your future. People chase titles, promotions, or companies thinking that the name on their business card will make them valuable. It won't. What makes you valuable is what you can do and how well you can combine those abilities in ways that others can't easily replace. That's what I mean when I talk about skill compounding. It's one of the most powerful forces in the world, yet it's astonishing how few people understand it. See, in investing, compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. Everyone knows that. Your money earns interest, that interest earns more interest, and over time, the growth becomes exponential. But most people never realize that the same principle applies to knowledge, to experience, to the human mind itself. Your brain can compound too. Each skill you develop becomes a multiplier on the others you already have. That's why I often say the best investment you can ever make is in yourself. The tragedy is that most people stop learning the moment they stop schooling. They think education ends with a diploma, but real education, the kind that creates freedom, starts after you leave the classroom. The world doesn't care about your degree. It cares about your usefulness. It rewards adaptability, curiosity, and range. The people who thrive in any era are those who keep learning when everyone else stops. Let me tell you something I've learned after decades in business. Specialization can make you competent, but multidisciplinary thinking makes you powerful. If you're only good at one thing, you're fragile. The world changes, and suddenly you're obsolete. But if you can learn across disciplines, if you can connect ideas from psychology, economics, communication, and technology, you become anti-fragile. You can adapt, survive, and even benefit from chaos. That's how you build real leverage. Think about it. Someone who can code is valuable. Someone who can code and sell and communicate clearly, that person is unstoppable. Because now each skill amplifies the others. A great communicator who understands finance and human behavior will outperform someone who just knows the technical parts. This is why Munger himself spent his life collecting mental models from dozens of disciplines, physics, biology, economics, psychology, and combining them into better decision-making tools. He didn't chase every trend. He learned the timeless patterns that govern how the world works. But the reason most people never compound their skills is psychological. The human brain resists the discomfort of being a beginner again. We don't like the feeling of incompetence, so once we get good at something, we cling to it. We stop exploring. We settle into comfort, mistaking stability for security. But what feels secure today often becomes the very thing that traps you tomorrow. The only real security in an unpredictable world is your ability to learn faster than it changes. Another problem is ego. People overvalue what they already know and undervalue what they don't. But ego and learning don't mix well. If you think you already know everything, you've stopped compounding. Humility is a form of intelligence because it keeps the mind open to growth. Every great investor, every great thinker understands this. Ignorance acknowledged is the first step toward wisdom. Now, skill compounding isn't just about acquiring random abilities. It's about strategic layering. You start with one strong foundation, something you're already good at, and then add skills that enhance or multiply its value. If you're a writer, learn marketing. If you're an engineer, learn public speaking. If you're an analyst, learn psychology. Each layer adds dimension, and when you stack enough of them, you become irreplaceable. But remember, Learning isn't just about reading books or taking courses. It's about curiosity applied to the real world. The smartest people are the most observant ones. They're always asking, why does this work that way? What's the underlying principle here? They see life itself as a classroom. They steal wisdom from everywhere: biographies, failures, mistakes, conversations, markets. Every experience becomes raw material for growth. One of the most powerful advantages you can create for yourself is a learning habit that compounds automatically. Read every day, reflect every week, apply what you learn every month. Over time, that process creates exponential returns. You may not notice the growth at first, just like compound interest doesn't look impressive in the beginning, but give it a decade, and people will call you lucky. They won't see that your luck is just compounded learning disguised as fortune. Here's the irony. Most people would rather chase higher income than higher intelligence. They want a raise, not a skill. But a raise can vanish overnight. A skill is permanent capital. The market may crash, your job may disappear, but your ability to think, to solve, to adapt, that's wealth that can't be taken from you. So if you want to escape the trap of working harder without getting richer, stop obsessing over income and start compounding skills. The mind is the ultimate asset. Everything else is downstream from that. Don't let your brain become stagnant while the world evolves. Learn something new, connect it to what you already know, and watch how it multiplies your value in ways you couldn't predict. Because in the long run, it's not the hours you work that make you wealthy. It's the skills you compound that make you unstoppable. You know, one of the most dangerous traps in any career is comfort. Comfort feels good, it feels safe, but it's the slowest poison in the world. Most people won't tell you this, but comfort is the silent reason why intelligent, capable individuals end up stuck for decades in jobs that no longer serve them. They're not lazy, they're not stupid, they're just comfortable. And that comfort becomes the cage that keeps them from ever discovering their true potential. I've seen it over and over again. People who start out ambitious, hungry, ready to take on the world, but somewhere along the line, they find a job that pays well enough. It's not their dream job, but it covers the bills. It's stable. They get used to the routine, the familiar faces, the predictable schedule. And then, without realizing it, 10 years go by. They've traded growth for security. They've stopped learning. They've stopped stretching. They've become prisoners of their own comfort zone, a place that feels safe but guarantees mediocrity. There's a psychological principle at play here, one that fools almost everyone. The human mind hates uncertainty. We're wired to seek stability. It's the same instinct that kept our ancestors alive. Stay where it's safe, avoid the unknown, protect what you have. The problem is that same instinct kills your growth in modern life. The danger isn't lions outside the cave anymore. It's complacency inside it. The comfort you cling to is the very thing preventing you from getting to the next level. Most people justify it with noble-sounding excuses. They'll say, I can't risk leaving right now, or I'll make a change once I'm more prepared, or maybe things will get better next year. But what they're really saying is, I'm afraid. They fear uncertainty more than they fear stagnation. They'd rather be comfortably miserable than uncomfortably growing. And that's exactly why they stay poor, financially, intellectually, and emotionally. Now, I'm not saying you should quit your job tomorrow or burn every bridge. What I'm saying is never confuse stability with progress. A paycheck can be the most beautiful trap in the world. It gives you just enough comfort to forget your potential. It buys your silence. It sedates your ambition. You start telling yourself stories to justify your inaction, that your job is fine, that your boss is fine, that this is just how life is. But deep down, you know you've stopped evolving. And that quiet voice in your mind, the one that whispers that you were meant for more, starts to fade. Charlie Munger once said, the first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. Well, the same principle applies to your personal growth. The moment you stop learning, stop challenging yourself, stop taking risks, you interrupt your own compounding, you cap your potential. And once that happens, time becomes your enemy instead of your ally. Here's something you should remember. Growth never feels like comfort. Growth feels like confusion. It feels like doubt. It feels like risk. But that's the price you pay for evolution. Every meaningful step forward comes with discomfort attached. The problem is most people run from that feeling instead of running toward it. They want progress without pain, gain without struggle. But life doesn't work that way. Comfort today almost always means regret tomorrow. If you're serious about building wealth, and I mean real wealth, not just financial comfort, you have to view discomfort as a signal, not a threat. Discomfort means you're expanding. It means you're entering territory that others are too afraid to explore. Every skill you acquire, every challenge you take on, every risk you calculate, they all compound over time into confidence, capability, and eventually freedom. But none of that happens if you stay where it's comfortable. And remember this, loyalty has to be earned in both directions. Many people stay in dead-end jobs out of loyalty to a boss, a company, or a paycheck. But loyalty to a system that doesn't reward your growth isn't virtue, it's submission. You owe it to yourself to evolve. You owe it to your future self to seek challenge, not comfort. Because comfort today can become a coffin tomorrow. It takes courage to leave something familiar, even when it's slowly suffocating you. But I'll tell you what takes more courage. Looking back in 20 years and realizing you wasted your best energy staying where it was safe instead of going where it was meaningful. Regret is far more painful than risk ever will be. So if you're sitting in a comfortable position right now, ask yourself, is this safety or stagnation? Am I growing or am I merely maintaining? Because life rewards those who keep moving, not those who sit still. The world is changing fast, and the people who can't adapt, who choose comfort over evolution, get left behind. Don't let your career become a long nap in the waiting room of life. Challenge yourself while you still have the energy to do so, because the truth is simple. The comfort zone might feel like home, but nothing new ever grows there. And if you keep choosing comfort over growth, one day you'll wake up comfortable, but powerless. One of the most limiting beliefs people carry, often without even realizing it, is the idea that their only path to success is through a paycheck. They think in terms of earning, not owning. Trading time for money feels natural because that's what society trains us to do from childhood. Go to school, get a job, work hard, and climb the ladder. But what no one tells you is that the ladder itself is owned by someone else, and while you're climbing, they're collecting. You see, the difference between being an employee and being an owner isn't just financial. It's psychological. Employees think in terms of effort and reward. If I work more, I'll earn more. Owners think in terms of systems, leverage, and scale. If I build something valuable, it'll earn even when I'm not working. That mental shift changes everything, because at some point you must realize you can't get wealthy by renting out your time forever. There's a ceiling on that. You might get paid well, even live comfortably, but you'll never be truly free. Charlie Munger has said many times that the key to financial independence is to own a piece of a business. It doesn't have to be a company you built from scratch. It can be equity in the firm you work for, shares of great businesses, or intellectual property you've created. The point is ownership, because ownership compounds while wages decay. Your labor loses value the moment you stop producing. Ownership, on the other hand, keeps paying you long after you've stopped working. Now, this doesn't mean everyone has to be an entrepreneur. That's another myth. Ownership isn't just about starting a company. It's about owning something that creates value beyond your direct effort. It can be a stock portfolio, a rental property, a personal brand, a digital asset, or even a set of specialized skills that can be licensed or monetized. The principle is simple. At some point, you must shift from working in the system to building something that benefits from the system. Otherwise, you'll always be the fuel for someone else's engine. The psychology of ownership also changes how you see the world. When you're an employee, you think short term. Oh, what's my next raise, my next promotion? But when you think like an owner, your time horizon extends. You start to make decisions based on longevity, durability, and compounding. You think strategically instead of reactively. That's why Munger and Buffett always talk about thinking like owners, even when they invest in companies. They don't speculate. They acquire a stake in something that produces. That's how wealth grows, not by chasing quick wins, but by accumulating long-term assets. The sad reality is most people never make this shift. They remain trapped in a wage mindset because it feels familiar. It feels responsible. But it's not freedom. It's dependency disguised as security. As long as your income depends on your next paycheck, someone else controls your livelihood. They decide what your time is worth. And the older you get, the more dangerous that dependency becomes. You can't work forever, but your assets can. Now, there's another dimension to this, a philosophical one. Ownership isn't just about money. It's about agency. When you own something, your time, your decisions, your outcomes, you reclaim control over your life. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You stop being a cog in someone else's plan and start designing your own. That's why the mindset shift is so critical. It's not merely financial, it's existential. You move from being managed to being self-directed. Here's the irony. Many employees are more capable and intelligent than the people who employ them, but they never learn to think like owners. They don't ask, how can I create leverage? Or what can I build that pays me while I sleep? They just keep selling time 1 hour at a time until they have no hours left to sell. And when they finally realize it, it's too late to start over. But you can start small. You don't have to build an empire overnight. You can start by saving a portion of your income and investing it wisely. You can start by creating a product, a service, a piece of intellectual property that has value beyond you. You can build a system that doesn't require your constant presence to function. Every small act of ownership, every share, every asset, every intellectual creation is a step toward freedom. And make no mistake, ownership requires responsibility. That's why most people avoid it. When you're an owner, there's no one to blame when things go wrong. You can't hide behind a boss or a title. But that accountability is what makes it powerful. It forces clarity. It forces you to think long term. And in a world full of short-term thinkers, that alone will set you apart. So if you want to stop being perpetually exhausted and underpaid, stop thinking like an employee who trades hours for dollars. Start thinking like an owner who builds value that compounds. The goal is not to work harder within the system. It's to eventually own a piece of it. Because until you own something, truly own it, you'll always be working for someone who does. If there's one thing that quietly shapes the trajectory of your entire life, more than intelligence, more than effort, even more than luck, it's the people you spend your time with. Your environment is like invisible gravity. It pulls you toward the habits, thinking patterns, and expectations of the people around you. Most people underestimate just how powerful that gravitational pull is. They think they can stay ambitious while surrounding themselves with mediocrity. They can't. Because whether you notice it or not, you're always absorbing the psychology of your environment. You see, success isn't just about what you know. It's also about who you learn from, who challenges you, and who normalizes excellence for you. If you spend most of your time around people who make excuses, complain, and justify failure, then mediocrity becomes your baseline. You'll start to internalize that as normal. But if you spend your time around people who expect more from themselves, people who value growth, who talk about ideas instead of gossip, who are obsessed with improving, that mindset becomes contagious too. Charlie Munger often says the safest way to get what you want is to deserve what you want. But he also understood that deserving requires environment. You can't develop the habits of high achievement while swimming in a pool of low expectations. Your mind adapts to the company it keeps. That's not philosophy, that's psychology. Humans are mimetic creatures. We copy, we learn by imitation. And most of that imitation happens subconsciously. You start adopting the behaviors, beliefs, and even the emotional tone of the people around you. That's why if you want to change your financial life, you first have to change your social environment. If you hang around 5 broke people, you'll become the 6th. If you hang around 5 disciplined, forward-thinking people, you'll start acting like them without even realizing it. It's not magic. It's exposure. The conversations you hear, the ambitions that are discussed, the problems people are solving, those things shape your mental model of what's possible. I've seen this play out in every industry. Talented people get stuck not because they lack ability, but because they surround themselves with people who think small. They talk about their limitations, not their opportunities. They focus on obstacles, not leverage. Over time, even the brightest mind dulls in the wrong environment. It's like putting a plant in the shade and wondering why it never grows. Now, this doesn't mean you should abandon your friends or family, but you do have to be deliberate about who influences your thinking. You can love people without letting them limit you. It's about exposure, not elitism. You can spend time with anyone, but make sure the voices that shape your worldview are ones that challenge you to rise, not sink. One of the smartest things you can do for your career is curate your circle like you would your investments. Diversify your sources of wisdom. Learn from people ahead of you, alongside you, and even behind you, but choose them wisely. You want people who hold you accountable, not people who comfort you into stagnation. The truth is, success is uncomfortable company. It doesn't tolerate excuses or victimhood. The people who grow the fastest are the ones who put themselves in rooms where they feel slightly inadequate, where they have to stretch to keep up. Most people avoid that feeling. They'd rather be the smartest person in a small room than the least experienced in a great one. But that's how you stop evolving. Growth requires humility. You have to be willing to look like a beginner again, to admit that someone else is better, and to learn from them. You'll also notice that people who achieve extraordinary results are incredibly intentional about their relationships. They seek out mentors, peers, and even competitors who force them to sharpen their thinking. They don't waste time arguing with the lazy or explaining their vision to the cynical. They protect their energy the same way they protect their capital, because they understand both are finite. And make no mistake, environment isn't just people. It's also what you consume. The books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the content you engage with, these are all voices in your mental circle. Most people fill their minds with noise, distraction, outrage. Then they wonder why they can't think clearly. If you want clarity, curate your inputs. Surround your mind with wisdom, not entertainment. At some point, you have to realize that your surroundings are either accelerating you or holding you back. There's no neutral ground. Every conversation either feeds your ambition or drains it. Every person you spend time with either stretches your perspective or shrinks it. That's why I always say the fastest way to change your future is to upgrade your environment. Because the truth is, you don't rise to your goals. You fall to the level of your circle. So choose your circle wisely, because over time you become what surrounds you. You know, the last mistake that keeps people poor, no matter how smart or hardworking they are, is the simplest and most common one: the inability to live below their means. It sounds almost too obvious to mention, but it's astonishing how many intelligent people never learn this discipline. They make more, they spend more, and then they wonder why they never feel wealthy. The problem isn't income, it's appetite. People don't get trapped by lack of opportunity. They get trapped by their inability to control desire. This is one of those truths that offends the ego. Nobody wants to admit that the reason they can't build wealth is because they spend like fools. But if you strip away the excuses, that's what it comes down to. The world is full of people who work 60-hour weeks, drive expensive cars, live in houses they can barely afford, and call that success. They're not successful. They're enslaved to appearances. They've mistaken looking rich for being rich. And that illusion keeps them broke even as their paychecks grow. Charlie Munger has always said that the first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. The same applies to money. You can't build wealth if you keep consuming what you should be compounding. But modern society encourages exactly that. It teaches you to measure progress by consumption. The newest phone, the trendiest outfit, the flashiest car, all signals meant to project status, not build security. But here's the harsh truth. Every dollar you spend to impress others is a dollar you've stolen from your future freedom. Wealth, real wealth, isn't measured by what you spend. It's measured by what you keep and reinvest. It's about ownership, not optics. But that requires delayed gratification, something very few people can master. The ability to postpone pleasure, to say not yet, is one of the strongest indicators of long-term success. The people who stay poor are the ones who keep trading future independence for present comfort. They don't realize that every time they buy something unnecessary, they're mortgaging a piece of their future for a fleeting moment of satisfaction. And this isn't just about money. It's about mindset. A person who can't control their spending usually can't control other areas of life either. Discipline is holistic. It's not something you turn on and off. It's a way of thinking. If you live reactively, chasing every new thing that catches your eye, you'll never have the stability to build anything lasting. You'll always be chasing, always needing more, always feeling behind. Now, there's a psychological reason behind all this. Humans are status-driven creatures. From the beginning of civilization, we've tried to signal importance through possessions. The caveman with the biggest weapon, the villager with the brightest clothes, the modern worker with the newest car. It's the same impulse dressed up in modern packaging. But here's the irony. The more we chase these signals, the more we signal insecurity. The people who are truly wealthy, not just financially, but mentally, don't need to prove it. Their confidence comes from control, not consumption. And that control is what financial discipline really is, control over yourself. Because money, in the end, is just a magnifier. If you're foolish when you're broke, you'll be even more foolish when you're rich. If you can't manage $1,000, you'll mismanage $1 million. That's why discipline isn't just good advice. It's the foundation of everything else. Without it, all the other principles, skill compounding, ownership, the right environment, they all collapse. It's not hard to understand, but it's incredibly hard to live by. We live in a culture that worships instant gratification. Everything is one click away. You're constantly being told that you deserve to treat yourself, that life is short, that you should enjoy now and worry later. But later always comes, and it comes with interest. The credit card bills, the loans, the financial anxiety, they're all symptoms of a culture addicted to the present moment. Munger once said, "It's not greed that drives the world, but envy." He was right. People don't go broke trying to survive. They go broke trying to compete. They're constantly comparing their behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. That's why they can't save. They're too busy trying to look like they've already made it. But the truth is, wealth doesn't show up in your wardrobe or your car. It shows up in your peace of mind. Financial freedom isn't about how much you earn. It's about how much you need to earn to maintain your life. If your lifestyle grows with your income, you're just running faster on the same treadmill. But if you keep your expenses low and your savings rate high, you build what Munger calls optionality, the ability to walk away, to say no, to choose your own path. That's real power. That's what separates those who merely work for money from those who let money work for them. It takes humility to live below your means when everyone around you is trying to show off. It takes patience to invest instead of spend. But over time, that patience compounds quietly, steadily, invisibly, until one day it gives you something that money can't buy, freedom. So learn to master your desires before they master you, because the fastest way to stay poor is to keep proving to others that you're not. And remember, wealth isn't about how much you make, it's about how little you need to spend to feel complete. The truth is, the world won't change for you. You must change how you think. The poor work for money, the rich make money work for them. Every mistake I've told you keeps people trapped in the same loop, effort without progress. Break the loop, think clearly, learn relentlessly, own something. That's how you escape the grind, not by working harder, but by working smarter and wiser.